So today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm actually going to film this, upload same day, and I'm planning on uploading it before my other video that will be coming out later today. It's already, I believe there's already Premiere page registered for that. My upcoming video that is already a scheduled post is to do with my goal for this video is to talk about all the same subjects that I did during the filming of the other video. That while I'm recording, I'm also having a panic attack, and I do complete a majority of the thoughts, and then you'll see, like, as I'm recording, there's like this slow realization of like it's dawning on me, like something's not right. I don't feel great. Something's definitely, and it ends with me realizing I need to stop recording because I'm just really self-conscious. I'm taking longer and longer pauses between words. So what I'd like to do today is clarify. I'm basically going to talk about all those same subjects. And then you can kind of see the difference between that video, and then this will act as sort of the placebo or the control video. So a couple of the points that I was making in the other video were surrounding we ought to be able to. And I covered there's the embarrassment factor of people just feeling extremely self-conscious. I think that society has separated us more and more, and we are almost, it's like what the best marketing solution is to get more and more people to buy your product, to get more and more people to call into BetterHelp, to get more and more people to maybe purchase your antidepressant. Like, you're going to need to have a one-on-one relationship or a parasocial? I think it's parasocial relationship or a dependency on the television. So if more and more subjects are taboo or uncomfortable to talk about from person to person, then you're going to have a greater difficulty realizing what you're dealing with internally. You're going to have a difficulty getting the education, the vocabulary that's required to have that self-assessment moment. I think all of this is critical. So the access to information, if it is only ever done through a television, through YouTube, and all these things have ads associated. There are some therapy apps or mindful journaling apps that do have ads that'll pop up as like a requirement every certain time. Or there are programs obviously that are behind a paywall, like the way that MedCircle is, or even the Calm app is behind, a great deal of that app is behind the paywall. So if you're not able to financially access those things, or you just don't have the awareness of how to navigate those tools, so it's the awareness of what there is available to you as a consumer who, again, we all have phones in our pocket. So it's not that we can't learn things. It's not that we can't get to certain things. It's just that sometimes they're behind a paywall or the map isn't super clear. And I think that that's partly intentional, because if you realize how much free knowledge there is out there in an accurate way through, there are great, I think MedCircle has a tremendous amount of like free content on YouTube, so they have sort of both aspects of it. I think they have a tremendous amount of like doctor-to-doctor discussions. They do interviews with, Dr. Romani did an interview with a couple different celebrities about like their mental health and the importance of being able to have an open dialogue about that. And then they sort of have like the option to say, okay, and if you'd like to find out more and to do some more self-developmental work, go ahead and visit Med Circle and things like that. So BetterHelp, I have tried to utilize for myself at different points because everybody loves the idea of like these hyper tailored, available when you need them, can text me anytime, therapy sessions. However, the expense of BetterHelp, where like not, I think there might be one or two, well, maybe not one or two, but a very select group of doctors who do accept insurance of any kind. Like, it's really basically, I think BetterHelp at this point in time is like 65 or 70 bucks a month. And if you put that over, like, individual therapy sessions can cost like 65 an hour or 100 bucks an hour, depends on your therapist. But that cost, if you're on a Medicare or any flavor of Mass Health, for the most part, those are costs that can easily not go out of pocket, or you might have like a copay. So it could be like 20 bucks. So over the course of, arguably, depending on how frequently you need it, if you're only paying a $20 copay 2 times a week, you could easily get more for your money by going to somebody in person, or having somebody in private practice who you meet with virtually. And obviously I think for a while, BetterHelp was the pioneer. I think there are a lot of other things that people have become more educated on in the pandemic time frame, basically out of necessity for needing to develop those things to retain their clients and to retain people coming in or being able to meet with them successfully. I had a couple points in there about how when you become aware that everybody, everybody has a point in their life, whatever age it is, that you realize like nobody was raised the same way as you. And not only that, but like there's exponential possibilities of like mom and dad could still be together, or like different socioeconomic factors, different types of trauma. So you realize like every single person has this huge backlog of like potential traumas they're dealing with, or potential, I can't think of the word, but like a neuroses or something that they're totally unaware of because they don't have anything to compare it to. And even just household to household within a family, like you could have your favorite aunt or your favorite grandmother that you have a really good relationship, but you only see her for this short window of time, so you're not seeing necessarily as quickly as you would if you were living with that person how their care of themselves is deteriorating, or how like different things are not lining up the way that they should. So you can have people that you know tremendously well, but you still don't. I think the taboo of mental health has really, I think, been an enormously it feels criminal how like you should just be able to say like, yeah, I had a panic attack on Tuesday, or yeah, I had a whatever on something, or like something triggered my PTSD, which is something that I deal with really, really chronically. Like if I get surprised by something, it is ugly, and there will be a spiral of some kind. So being able to transparently say like, hey, I'm sorry, the way you look like somebody else that I used to know caught me off guard for a second, but now I'm back into the conversation. It just like was a snap of the fingers. But if you're not able to either process what that uncomfortable feeling is, why you have a pit of a stomach feeling, just in order to get to what is upsetting you is so difficult to have that foundational knowledge if you were not raised with the ability to process your emotions in a healthy way, if you don't have coping mechanisms, if you don't have the journaling practices, if you don't have like a core group of people that you can bring those things up to in a safe way without either a relative or a friend being like, I don't know what you're talking about, like, or having that wall of like, well, I would never react that way, and I don't know why you're reacting in such a categorically like obtuse or really weird way. Like, why would you react that drastically to something so minor? And it's like, well, it wouldn't be minor to you if you had had the exact same experience, and you can't always walk somebody through that. Frankly, not everybody on an external level is deserving of the information of what you've undertaken, how you're processing that on the inside, because if they're just deliberately determined to misunderstand you, like I have run into fairly recently, like there are some people who really just are so dense, like they just in this particular realm, like it is easier to remain closed off. It is easier to remain unaware of your trauma. It's easier to keep that door shut. And that really sucks. I think that I wouldn't be where I am with my ability to process my emotions without the passing of my mom. I think that was catastrophic for my brain. I think it caused plenty of underlying realizations that I had no clue, like, why I was doing certain things before her passing. I think it really freed me specifically from, like, even as a 20-whatever-year-old person, from being like, oh, I can't really do that, or I can't post that on social media, or I can't tell something about, you know, myself in a public way, because then some relative is going to tell my mom, or my mom's going to see it on Facebook and call me or deal with that. And it was just like this realization that, like, there really truly is nobody, almost nobody, that I could disappoint at this point in my life that would react in that same type of way. So as an example, obviously I can only really speak from my own specific understandings and the, you know, whoever might give me permissions to share their stories and understandings in the future, to do a continuation of this. But I, you know, sit here before you with, you know, no parents, no grandparents, and like really not anybody to consistently, there is no checking in, like, chronically, regularly with someone. And I think that that's a really difficult thing for me, because I was so convinced, told, and had only been exposed to, because it was like a me and my mom only, her as a single mom working, me as a latchkey kid, whatever. But she always made time to, like, there would be text sends, we would do, she would basically over communicate with me, which at certain points I think was definitely detrimental in its own way. But I think that because of the just totally hands-on nature of how I was raised, just me and her doing whatever, me and her going to breakfast, brunch, out to outings to go see, like, plays at the Criterion, locally, one of the theaters locally, and the one-on-one attention that I completely always expect and was told, like, this is what love is, this is what it looks like to have somebody, like, physically be present with you, to, like, the words of affirmation and, like, doing activities, which for her it was like singing and whatever. There would always be, like, she was reading a lot of books to me when I was young, and then we would watch a lot of movies together. Like, there was always something we were doing, to the point that when I started to spend time other places or with other friends, It became like, I think she was more upset about that. Like, there were points where, like, I would go out to do different things with friends and not realize that she had planned something. So a specific example is one of my high school years. So, like, my junior or sophomore year, I had gone out with friends either on the first day of school or the last day of school. I think it was the last day of school. Me and my buddies went to, like, go get lunch or something, like, out. We went to, like, Angelo's Diner over off of, in, like, the Naughty Dogs part of the area of New Bedford. I don't remember. So they're, like, close enough to the park. We had kind of, like, walked there from the high school, so we sat and had lunch together. And then, like, however things happened, whoever had the car at the time brought me back to the house, and I had already texted my mom. I had already told her what I was going to be doing, so that she wasn't, like, expecting me home, basically. But then, like, when I got home, I had, like, my leftovers in my hand, and she, like, gave me the silent treatment, and then, like, went out for a drive and didn't tell me. Like, this was not a regular thing, where my mom was not, like, a go out for a drive person. So she eventually came back after hours and hours of me, like, freaking out, trying to figure out what I did wrong. And she was like, well, I always take you out for lunch, like, the last day of school. I always take you out. You and I always do this specific thing. And as a kid, like, at 14 or whatever, 15, whatever age I was like, I don't understand why. Like, I told you ahead of time where I would be. I told you who I was with. I told you what was going on. So the idea that you're now presenting as affronted about that, or you're now giving me a silent treatment, a passive aggressive situation, like, that was really, really such a difficult thing for me to handle at the time. So I think because she spent so much time with me, definitely a lot more time with me as a kid, making sure I had reading done, making sure, like, I was always interacting with her, one way or another. And then I think as I started to become a person who, you know, a little bit more mature, going through the years, I think there was definitely a separation that I think she ended up really just not treating me well about. And these are things that I'm really making a concerted effort to try and deal with in my personal life. Like, I do not deal well with anybody separating from me for any reason, ever. I never have, and that's why, like, I tend to be, like, the Irish goodbye person. I do not understand, like, what you could possibly mean by, like, I love you, but, like, whatever. I love you, but you're whatever. I love you, but I'm not on your team on this specific subject. And I will mentally be like, well, why do you think that? Or why didn't you present that sooner? Like, why am I just now learning about your preferences? And obviously preferences can change, opinions can change, but the idea that those shouldn't be things I have to dig for. And there are times where, like, I will talk myself out of, like, you know, no, you're being overreactive, or, like, that person doesn't mean anything by, or, like, that person must be a little bit more busy than usual, or, you know, there are occasions where I will sit and be like, no, like, this doesn't make sense. That person would never do something for me. And I've been completely wrong. I have sat and said, like, no, my friend is just changing jobs right now, or my friend is just whatever, or they're hanging out with other people, and eventually they'll come back around to me. And then, like, months and months later, they're like, well, why didn't you take the hint? And I'm like, well, because you told me. Because you specifically told me, like, not to be worried, not to be upset, not to be whatever, that we were gonna do something or gonna go grab a cup of coffee sometime, and I will mentally, like, I will hang my hat on that to a certain extent. I will be like, well, why would they have said that if they didn't want to do that? Which, unfortunately, for people who are like me, who have BPD, like, you cannot just casually off the cuff say something like that, because I will retain that. And the lack of people being able to stick to the word that they've given me specifically is what has led to the discovery of my personality disorder. It has definitely led to my DID episodes that I haven't really talked about too much on this channel. That information might be coming. I'm really not sure how ready I am to talk about that specifically. But I will get into this mode. What has essentially happened is that my brain will be like, no, this is the factual information this person has given me. This is the foundation of what their expectations are, and I've explained what my expectations are. So the idea that they've presented me with false information, or that they're, I let so few people in that then to have a violation of that trust is literally incomprehensible to me. Like, I will literally, that's where some of the splitting has happened for me. Because I will be like, well, why would that person say that they want to make amends with me? Or why would that person say they wanted a relationship with me? Or why would that person say, like, yes, we're definitely going to hang out and do X together, or yes, we definitely do need to sit down and discuss business plans, or okay, I'll call you tomorrow. Like, why would you set those expectations and then not, like, plans change and stuff, but then to still not communicate that those changes have happened or that those changes in opinion have taken place it feels malicious to me, and there's no other word for it. Like, it feels malicious to me. So that's the first 20 minutes. I'm gonna leave this unedited on purpose. I am gonna pause for an interval here, just to go grab a cup of coffee and some stuff, but I'm really trying to leave this as unedited as I can, basically to compare to the other video. Hi everybody, so this is being filmed the same day. I just wanted to show you, it just became finally too warm here in where I live. It's just the sun is finally melting the snow on the ground after days and days of snow piles, so I am back in my keep trying shirt. I know I've worn this a lot, and I was just doing some other laundry and things around the house, so here I am again. I wanted to, hi, come on, finish my video and address some of the topics where I had explored in my video that's going to be coming out, and basically give you my perspective on them outside of a panic attack. That way you can compare it to what the other video looks like. So basically, let me just think really quickly. I think what I'd like to talk about next is the newest Disney, it's not Disney Pixar, but it's like that 3D animated look, the Encanto movie, and how I think, like, societally, that movie does a really good depiction of, like, what it looks like to have really, like, the family stereotypes enforced of, like, this is the matriarch, you never question anything she says, you always do what she's expecting. And then you get to really clearly see this depiction of, like, this progression of, like, oh, this one has to make the weather perfect all the time, or this one has to be the strongest, and, like, don't ever disappoint grandma. and how completely detrimental that is to just kind of like be on guard all the time, or like make sure you straighten up when she walks by, which you do like see that literal action taking place. And that's really, it hit home for me personally, because we do have within my own sphere of family like a lot of those matriarchal, patriarchal figures where it's like, don't say certain things around whatever, or you can expect like this person's going to make comments about your weight regardless of what you do or what you look like. This person's going to make comments about how you're still not married regardless of what you're doing, regardless of anything else you might have accomplished. Like, they're going to bring that up, and you need to be like non-confrontational about it, non-combative like that. And unfortunately, if you've been watching my videos, you know the detriment that can be caused by like not giving your family member education about certain other family members, and the idea of like, these are the relatives that we don't talk about, literally leads to like, only in Disney World, the Disney sphere of worlds that they've created, could that ever possibly be like, this is a misunderstood relative who is rejoining the family and now it's happily ever after. Like, unfortunately, my literal uncle that nobody told me adequately about was a literal threat to my health and safety. Like, that could have probably been avoided because, you know, by any number of things. It's like, the idea that we don't talk about somebody is a huge, 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 huge problem. To a certain extent, like, family should know people's medical history, people's, like, any history of, like, not just physical health, but mental health is such a critical thing to be discussing. So to have that be taboo, you're literally robbing the next generation of, like, whatever your intentions are, whether you hope that that won't be something that they encounter or not. That should still be information that's passed from person to person to person down generations, because unfortunately, in my specific case, I used to, like, getting raised the way that I was, it was always like, your dad's a bad person, don't ever be like him, and all these different things. So to grow up with like, okay, got it, don't do this, don't do whatever, and don't, you know, make sure you don't end up in those places like he did, make sure that you don't put yourself in those same situations as he did. But unfortunately, that became a crux for some people, where like, it was, nobody wanted to talk about the different traumas that he caused. Either my siblings, my mom certainly didn't want to address anything that she had been through, because she was still trying to heal from that, cope with that, live with that, and raise a daughter and work. And like, I think the idea, like, we don't talk about Bruno or whoever, like, whether it's a father or an uncle or whoever, like, there are different reasons why that is not supposed to be. It's not conducive to continue to live a life in that way. It's honestly irresponsible to continue to raise children who don't have access to medical records. There's absolutely no reason. Everybody has a phone, everybody has a document scanner of one kind or another, most people. Or you have access to, like, public libraries have those for a small fee of copying stuff, or like, there is no reason. We have Google Drives, we have share files, we have Evernote, Dropboxes, like up the yin-yang, excuse me, of ways in which families can share critical information of what they're predisposed to, what exactly, if there's historically an allergy to something that has been perceived perhaps as something else. Like, if somebody took years and years of their life to figure out, like, do I have Lyme disease? Is this a different type of joint problem? Is it a blood disorder? And you've taken 3, 4, whatever amount of years of your life seeing doctors and trying to get diagnosed, having blood scans, having bone scans, whatever it is, Like, that could be something that your, even not even your immediate bloodline, could be something that your nephew is going to be dealing with in the future. Like, don't leave that element of mystery is not where an element of mystery should be. Like, you need to be able to, for my diagnostic health, for the mental health portion of my medical treatment last year, I was like, well, what, I've been dealing with anxiety my whole life. I've been dealing with depression my whole life. Like, what? There's obviously years and years and years of depression. Like, how do I help myself through this? How do I help give other people, like, appropriate knowledge of, like, people who want to be in my life, of, like, how to safely interact with me, or what they need to say, what to not say. Like, how do I get that information? And you really can't get that information to be able to give somebody else forward without having your own diagnostic process. So hopefully, I really can't speak for sure because I don't really even have my mom's medical records. I have plenty of her history. There are things that I know firsthand, but I don't have, like, a tangible record of, like, her doctor's notes or anything like that. I don't even know how I would begin to access those, or if I could access those. And certainly with, my dad, in the case of, like, he was absent from my life for a very important reason. And then, like, later on, when I did have the ability to build a relationship with him as, like, a teenager, adult person, I didn't, like, you don't have the bandwidth at 16 to be like, hey, by the way, can I have your medical information, or what did you actually, like, lots of people are like, oh, he neglected his mental health, but what does that mean? Like, did he try to do talk therapy for a while, or did he have the same experience that I did, where, like, I had to try antidepressant or, like, a mood stabilizer? Like, there are so many different things that I personally have tried to do where there has been more of a detriment to my health than a assistant to my health. Like, there have been so many negative side effects that I've personally dealt with in my life that have been, like, each time you try something new, it's like you have to kind of brace yourself and be like, all right, here I go again. You have to figure out what is a negative side effect of the medication and what is you. You have to figure out what is a negative. Like, is this nausea just because I ate something today, or is there going to be nausea tomorrow? Okay, there's nausea 5 or 6 days in a row, and, like, your doctor could be like, well, continue to try it anyway until I can get you in front of someone, or until I can put you back in my calendar, and, like, we're going to put you on medication after medication after medication because this iron pill is going to counteract this other pill that makes you iron deficient, which makes you, this other one is going to counteract the second pill. So the third pill is going to counteract the second pill, which could make you gain weight, and this one's going to help you with, like, appetite suppressant. So it's like you end up really shooting yourself in the foot, and it's alarming to me that that's what is accepted right now. I've seen it person after person, with my mom, with, a lot of people in, we're looking at 1 generation, 2 generations above me, who are, people who are boomers, people who are Gen X, where, like, now you're taking so much more just to counteract things because you weren't given adequate information or adequate access to health information earlier on in life. So the preventative measure for that is to continue to give people information earlier on in life. Like, it's a direct duh. Like, anything that you're predisposed to as an adult, or have the opposite, like, maybe if you had the opportunity to know, like, oh, like, this person's anemic and I never knew that, then you can introduce other supplements into your life earlier on in life so that you don't have the long-term effects of like a chronic anemia that you might have. Or like, hey, you know, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my whoever, all of these people ended up with type 2 diabetes. Well, how do you prevent that? Can it be prevented? Is something, you know, there are some things that are inevitable genetically, but type 2 diabetes isn't one of them. Like, you can do different things earlier on in life and have your child not experience like, oh, that's just how things are, or that's just what's gonna happen anyway. Like, no, like, it might not just like happen anyway if you give those children the tools to succeed that they desperately need, so that they don't, like, the goal should not be that your child has to figure out things the hard way because that's what you had to do. Like, that is not the goal here. So as critical as that is for your physicality, like, obviously you need to know about a circulatory issue if you have heart disease or anything like that in your family, or a predisposition for like early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, anything of that nature. Like, you need to be able to know those things, but you also need to, you should have access to say, yep, like, my grandmother was bipolar, or my dad was schizophrenic, or like, yes, these are the specific treatments that they underwent. This is what was specifically successful for that person. And no, something that is specifically 100% effective for your father would not necessarily be 100% effective for you, because you do have different genetic material, but like, that's valuable information. It's just as valuable as understanding like what to do in the case of different blood types and how to get somebody the right information or the right thing that's going to work for them based on that. Like, if you are in a critical position or in the middle of a episode of one kind or another, whether it's a dissociative episode or sorry, I just like I said, it's my goal to not edit this video very much at all, but there are topics that are simply things I'm very passionate about, so I'm trying not to be too escalated, because I think that that is part of why I was having a panic attack in my other video. And so the diagnostic portion of like understanding what's going on with you, the symptom identification is critical, because the first step to getting care of any kind, getting treatment of any kind, is realizing, self-identifying that like something's not right, or having a family member say, like, hopefully in a goal to help you, hopefully not in a malicious, like, she's off her rocker way, which unfortunately also encountered, but like, hey, you know, you need to be able to have that moment within yourself where like hopefully somebody says something that they are viewing and like you're receptive to that, or hopefully you get across like the right piece of information that makes you go, oh, okay, I think this is a definition that I align with for myself. This makes the rest of what I'm experiencing make sense. Or, hey, there was this really quirky thing that I thought was specific to me, and those quirky behaviors can actually be an ADHD or an autism reactive like thing. Like, it's not like these quirky things that are so obtuse, but they are things that like you might not even realize are identifying factors for. So the other piece of that is once you do have your diagnosis, once you do have some of your own support systems in place, whether that is medication, whether that is like whatever it is, whether it's you're working out more, whether you're doing more mindfulness-based activities more, maybe you need to be more social, maybe you just can't do social because you're going to get too burnt out, and that's fine too. Then you need to hopefully have people in your life who are receptive, who want to help you, who care enough about you to ask what your diagnoses actually are, one or more, so that they can be aware of and like just figure out how to have a healthy and happy friendship with you, relationship with you, of any kind, family, friend, whatever. And the ability to have that open dialogue with even the people that you love the most, the people who should, theoretically, if you love them the most, should love you back the most, to say, hey, I know you went through a lot of hard work with your talk therapist, or hey, I know you've been undergoing this particular treatment and like it sounds like you've been having a really difficult time, like let's please talk about it whenever you're ready, in whatever manner you're ready. Like I would like to hear about that experience. And like there are so many close people in my life that have never taken that step, and I don't know if it's an assumption of like, well, you know, if I went through that, then I wouldn't want to talk about that. Or if I was in that position, I would just like keep it to myself, or I would handle processing it just differently. But like for me, because of how hands-on everything to do with my early life was, everything that I have expected as an adult is built on primarily like a very linear transition of like the amount of times that you reach out to me is a factor, the amount of, it's not primarily about like stuff for me. Like I do have, I've talked about in videos, I have so much stuff, I could fill a Little Mermaid grotto with it, but like it's not tchotchkes that I need. Like I expect people who love me to make time for me. And the inability to make time for me translates directly into like, those people don't love me, that person has like out of sight, out of minded me, and it triggers like a direct abandonment situation that person might not have meant. Or like they're just going about their regular business. And this is the delineation that I have a lot of trouble with right now, because there are people who are just like, oh yeah, me and so stopped hanging out, or like I wonder what happened to them. Whereas like for me, it's literally inconceivable that like if they're that good of a friend to you, like why would you not text them? Why would you not know how they're doing? Like why would you not send that email? Or like if you and somebody else weren't on specifically bad terms that they've expressed to you, then like, hey, how's that person doing, should directly turn into like, oh, I'm gonna shoot them a thinking of you message, which is literally like so Drew Monson, I watch a lot of Drew Monson. I actually do talk about that in my other video as well. I watch a lot of Drew Monson. I've watched some Garrett Watts, but I can't always tolerate like some of his silly, goofy things. I am not a Harry Potter person, and every video he talks about Harry Potter 4 times. And it's interesting to see, even in like, I want to acknowledge Shane Dawson and like Jeffree Star without, like, I realize that there's so much, like, you can still be a bad person currently and in different regards. Like, I'm not going to discuss too many other aspects of their life right now or their public persona that they need to atone for. But I think that they have all, probably Drew Monson best of all, and Garrett, but they are all basically my age or like slightly older, slightly younger, openly saying, like, I have had mental health difficulties, I have anxiety, and I left the internet. Or Bo Burnham is a huge figure right now. He's 2 years older than me, also from Massachusetts, and like got his start doing videos super young and has been dealing with like performance anxiety and different things that basically he had to completely stop touring because of. Drew Monson was saying that he had to leave the internet for an interval because of that. And the ability to say, like, no bones day or zero fucks available day, or like, you know, I don't have the capacity to deal with these things, is such a healthy and important thing to be able to say, whether it's to a camera, whether it's to your coworker, whether it's to whoever. Like, the ability to talk to people as people cannot be, it's totally inextricable from having a mental health conversation. Like, I don't understand, yes, the things that you're going to be able to talk about with your boss or your coworker is totally different, but you should still be able to say, like, hey, I'm not in a position to can you give this a second set of eyes, or do you mind whatever, or can we postpone, like, from, you know, this meeting, can we do it at 1 o'clock instead of 11? I just need to take, you know, a breather, or like literally do a lap around the building in the parking lot, or whatever it is. And the totally unrealistic expectations that a lot of workplaces have, where like, it's like, well, what do you mean? And like, you know, these are deadlines that are basically fictitious. Like, nobody needs unless you're in a medical setting, like, nobody needs anything within like a certain time period. Like, I'm not going to get into that, but I think that there are so many artificial deadlines that like we've just perceived and believed as like, oh yeah, like this is what needs to happen or else all hell will break loose. Like, no, sorry, like, time is not real. Time is a man-made like instrument that we march to for almost no reason, and like so blindly. Like, no, I think that during the pandemic, a lot of people have had to turn inward because they haven't had a choice. Like, we're literally, for the most part, in a stagnant position, where we're just kind of waiting. Are things going to open up? Are people going to be expected to go back to work at all costs? And no, of course, that's not how things should be, but like, trying to figure out what's going to happen next, what's around the corner, what's going to come from the top down, what's going to come from the bottom up. January 6th. And the ability to have that dialogue and like the vulnerability is so important. And I think that I've literally within the last like couple of months of my life been made fun of for being vulnerable, and I can't express that enough. Like, I've been literally made fun of for like how much I care about people, the amount of time I've given to other people, or like, why do I care so much about certain people? Like, being made fun of for being super transparent about what my expectations are, the level of which I care about certain people in my life. Like, we should be better by now. I've made a lot of posts about how, like, I've been through so much in my life that has gotten me to the point where, like, I value transparency. I myself have tried so hard to present like transparency of, am I doing okay? Or like, no, today is an anger day. Or today is a sad, can't get out of bed day. Or like, you know, I've been vocal. I feel like I've been really vocal to the people that I had in my life at certain points. And to say like, hey, I really do need more phone calls. I really do need more texts. I really do need you guys to like put some effort in to prove and make me feel like you think I matter to you in any way, shape, or form. And to say like we already feel so isolated from each other physically, like the ability to pick up a phone and text somebody is not a lot to ask. It's literally not. To be thought of is not a lot to ask. Like, and I'm not gonna beg my friends anymore to like value me in the same way that I valued them. Like, it's not okay to forget about people. Like, all we have during this stupid global catastrophe is people, and it is each other. And like, I'm sorry, but this is not the time that you should be jeopardizing somebody's physical anything, shouldn't be jeopardizing somebody's mental life, shouldn't be violating anybody's consent, shouldn't be taking other people's boundaries as like superfluous or superficial or whatever you think they might be. And like, this should be like a lay down your arms like moment. This is a 21 fucking guns moment of like, hello, like, the ability to make time for people is so critical. And like, I can't imagine who I would be without that like mindset of like, I feel like I'm really exhausted of the fact that I'm realizing like I need more than a lot of people are capable of giving, or a lot of people have been taught to whatever, but like I give like 4,000% of myself to anybody in front of me at any given time. Whether it's a client I've worked with for tarot or energy work, whether it's anybody, like the fact that like when I do dial myself back and retract some of the energy, I feel guilty about that. Like the realization that my 100% is different than other people's, like, or equivocal to like somebody else's 300%. Or there's the, like, unfortunately there's no emotional Olympics and like getting made fun of for having thin skin in certain areas is rampant. It is not always appreciated, and it should be. And I had a thought that, like, in The Incredibles, where, like, Jack, who's, like, the super speed, has to, like, literally dial himself back to 100 and, you know, from 100%, his, like, regular self, to like be in the races with his friends and do what he enjoys doing, and like at his super young age, and he wants to have those friends, like he has to participate at like a 12th or like a 24th of his availability. And, like, I don't know how... I'm at the realization that, like, I need to change what my expectations are, and I don't know how that's going to shake out. Like, I know that I'm still a young person. I have new friends that I've been trying to intentionally pace myself to say, like, okay, everybody has, like, I don't, but other people have, like, different tiers of friendship for how long they've known each other. Like, that's asinine to me. It's fully asinine. Like, you could know somebody over a stupid poker table or a D&D game or whatever, over a golf field, whatever. Or over, somebody you play basketball with. You can know them for like 12 years or 14 years, and if the only thing you've done is that one thing, like, and you're not doing anything else, like, no, I'm sorry, you don't know that person, and the length of time which you've known that person is garbage. Like, that's my personal opinion. That is exactly how I feel about that. Like, if people aren't actively pouring into your well-being, like somebody going through a divorce or somebody going through a custody issue, that's stuff that needs to be, you need to be seen during that time, you need to be acknowledged, you need to have somebody, like, get down on your knees and fucking get on the floor with you, or get into bed with you if you can't, not into bed, but, like, come see you if you can't get out of bed. Like, that's what a friend is. Like, everything in your power should be, I don't know. I really don't think that, like, at the risk of repeating myself, my favorite saying is, like, you, instead of knocking other people off of their high horses or their high expectations, or knocking somebody else down who's, like, stronger than you, prettier than you, better at whatever than you, like, you can also have a high horse. Like, don't knock somebody off their horse. Literally go get a horse. Like, figure out what your thing is and get a horse about it. Like, make sure, like, I don't know. I'm hoping that this is, I will always make the effort to be there when somebody needs me. And the concept that that level of love, care, commitment, understanding, empathy, sympathy, support is not available, and to have, like, hey, I'm in a difficult place right now, you're perfectly aware I'm in a difficult place right now, can you please help me, can we please get coffee, can we please do whatever. If I've, called you 3 times, you haven't called me back, like, to have that then be met with anger when I'm already visibly or vocally in, like, a really difficult place. I don't understand that. I don't understand the level of animosity. Like, I don't. I'm really struggling with the idea that, like, people grieve differently, so where somebody else might need you know, an infinite black hole to fall into for space so that they can heal from stuff. I personally literally cannot heal, and I will have like an emotional third-degree burn about it until I have like people to interact with and people to talk to, and like ideally eye contact, like in person, to heal from those things. And I just really, really have a greatly difficult time with respecting that and understanding that. Like, I don't know. I hate the idea that like I'm inconvenient because of how much I care about somebody, or I'm inconvenient because I feel like I need to do something, or we need to do something to help someone, or like that my expectations for myself and surrounding myself, like, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect somebody to be transparent with you, to be honest with you. And I think that's where I need to end this video. I'm getting hungry. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you can tell the difference between this video and my upcoming video. I think that, unfortunately, I am a little bit elevated right now. Like, I'm feeling like the anger is sort of like right beneath the surface, and I'm gonna try and bring myself down about that. I just have to make peace with the fact that I'm doing everything I know how to for myself. And I think that I, at some point, am going to need to make peace with, like, the people I've lost in the process. And I hate that. I hate that it happened. I hate that I really feel like everybody would be in a lot better of a place where, like, if they were as caring or as emphatic or as passionate or as whatever. But the realization that all I have is emotional extremes, and that I have to kind of force myself to have a more mild emotion, is something really difficult for me that I'm going to get a handle on eventually. And that's part of what it is to have CPTSD, is that sometimes the reality of, like, talking about what has happened to you, what has transpired, is just as, like, you end up reliving that moment. So I think that's some of what has happened here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for continuing to be supportive, and see you on the flip side.